"Mr. Carter, you've been accused of sexual misconduct with a minor." That's how the detective opened, before the chair under me was even warm. No handshake, no preamble, just those words, like a punch that folds you in half and leaves you wondering if you even heard right. And then he said her name. Emily. I'd have laughed if my throat wasn't tightening. Emily was my niece. 17. I'd been raising her since she was 7 years old, since the night her parents, my older brother and his wife, were killed by a drunk driver on a 2-lane road outside of Boise. She'd been in the back seat, strapped in, her head full of picture books and bad pop music. The only survivor. That night I signed a paper at the hospital making me her legal guardian. I didn't think about what I was giving up. My job as a traveling project manager, gone. My dating life, gone. My Saturday mornings, my Sunday mornings, my sleep, all gone. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to her school, sold my car for something with better safety ratings, learned how to braid hair from YouTube. For 10 years, it was just the two of us. She called me Uncle Matt when she was little and Matt when she hit high school. I thought we trusted each other completely. And now I was sitting under fluorescent lights, with a cop who looked like he'd already decided what kind of man I was. "Do you understand the accusation?" he asked. I just stared at him. I was trying to picture Emily's face saying my name in the same breath as that word. Misconduct. I told him there had to be some mistake. That Emily must have said something that got twisted. He just clicked his pen. "We'll get to that." They questioned me for 2 hours, when I'd last been alone with her, whether I'd ever entered her room without knocking, what clothes she wore around the house, whether I'd touched her in ways I might not think are inappropriate but a teenager could. Every answer felt like walking on glass barefoot. By the time they let me go, my phone was buzzing with texts from friends I hadn't heard from in months. Not one of them said, "Is this true?" They all said, "I can't believe you do that," or "Don't contact me again." When I pulled into my driveway, my neighbor, a woman I'd shoveled snow for every winter, was standing on her porch. She turned and went inside without a word. I didn't even have my coat off before my sister-in-law's side of the family started lighting up my phone. Emily was with them, they said. She didn't want to see me. She'd told them everything. And they believed her without asking me a single question. I sat there in the dark, my jacket still on, thinking about the night I taught her to ride a bike, the college fund I'd been building for her, the time I drove 4 hours in the rain to pick her up from a sleepover where she'd had a panic attack. And now she was telling people I'd hurt her. I didn't know if I should be angrier at the accusation, or at the fact that I had no idea why she'd make it. Part 2, Hairline Cracks. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the ceiling fan drag the dark around and tried to line my thoughts up like ducks. They scattered every time I got to Emily's name. At 7 a.m., a social worker called. Her voice had the careful patting people use around open wounds. She said Emily was safe with relatives. She said I shouldn't attempt contact. She said an investigator would be in touch. Then she asked if there were any firearms in the house. No, I said. Never have been. Any locks on interior doors? Bathroom. That's it. Security cameras? Doorbell. Driveway. I hesitated. And one in the living room. For when she had friends over and I wasn't home. Silence stretched, thin as fishing line. For safety, I added, too late to make it sound like anything but what it was, a father who wasn't her father trying to do the job anyway. The social worker thanked me. We hung up. I sat in the quiet and listened to the fridge hum like it was thinking about leaving too. I called a lawyer a friend knew, a compact man with the tired eyes of someone who's heard every story. He didn't ask if I did it. He asked for dates, emails, texts, report cards, photos, told me to write everything down, while it was still sharp. Truth dulls with time, he said. So do lies. I opened my laptop and started a timeline. The cursor blinked like a metronome. I could feel my life being reduced to exhibits. April 14, Emily's junior prom. I hemmed her dress myself, fingers pricked raw. She came home at 11:42 p.m., mascara smudged, grinning. She said, "You didn't have to wait up, but I knew you would." June 2, she got her first job at a coffee place. I bought her non-slip shoes, and she rolled her eyes, then hugged me from behind as I cooked. She smelled like cinnamon and shampoo. August 19, we fought about a boy. Noah. Senior, varsity lacrosse, smile like a billboard. She called me controlling. I said I didn't like the way he looked at her. She said that wasn't my business. She slammed the door. I made chili and left it outside her room. She took it, later, left the bowl in the sink without a word. I scrolled through photos. Emily at 7, clutching a stuffed owl from the funeral home's comfort basket. Emily at 14, in braces, holding up her learner's permit like a trophy. Emily at 16, asleep on the couch with a book face down on her chest. In all of them, my hand was somewhere just out of frame, a sleeve in the corner, a shoe, a reflection. Present without proof. When the detective called to schedule a second interview, he used my first name. Not Mr. Carter, Matt. It sounded like a step down a staircase I didn't know I was on. I showered. I found the shirt with the least wrinkles and still looked like a man who hadn't slept. On the way out, I almost tripped over Emily's bike, the one I never could bring myself to sell after she outgrew it. Its chain had rusted in a lazy loop. I lifted it back onto the hook like that would matter. At the station, the same room, the same sour coffee. A new person sat in, a woman from CPS with a neat bun and a pen that clicked like a metronome. They asked me again about boundaries. I told them about the time I grabbed Emily's wrist to take my keys back. I said she was 16, furious, thought I was treating her like a child. She yanked away and hit the door frame. A bruise bloomed, thin, green, a question mark on her forearm. I made a note in my calendar then, a habit I'd picked up after getting blindsided by parenthood, argument about car, bruise accidental. I had to admit, written out loud, it looked like the kind of note a guilty man might make to convince himself of something. The CPS woman nodded in a way that didn't mean anything. "Any other physical contact?" she asked. "Once," I said. She tried to climb out the window at midnight. I pulled her back in. She scraped her shoulder on the sill. I could hear Emily's voice in my head, "I hate you. I hate you." She'd whispered it like a prayer, not meaning it even as she did. When they let me go, the waiting room had a headline version of my life, courtesy of a woman I'd known since PDA days. I always thought something was off, she was telling a pale man with red ears. Single men shouldn't raise girls. It's not natural. I followed her outside and said her name. She turned, eyes already damp, like victimhood was something she could put on like a coat. "Don't talk to me," she said. "My daughter's not coming over anymore." "She never did," I said, too flat to be a defense. Back home, I started noticing things I'd never needed to notice. The smell of Emily's lotion in the hall. A thread of her hair caught in a picture frame. The mug she'd painted at one of those cafe nights, a lopsided cat with an extra long tail. I should have packed those things, put them in a box to make myself less crazy. Instead, I left them where they were like I was setting a table for a ghost. I tried to call her. Straight to voicemail. I typed out a text, *I love you. Please talk to me. I'm not mad about anything. I'm just, *. I deleted the last word. I didn't know what I was. Scared felt too small. Here felt stupid. Hurting felt like asking for pity. I sent nothing. By afternoon, the first relative called. My sister-in-law's cousin, Tasha, who'd babysat once, for money I didn't have to spare. "You stay away from her," she said. She's finally safe. Safe from what? I asked. She hung up. I stood at the sink, water running, and let it splash my hands till they went red. I thought about the night Emily asked me if I remembered her mother's laugh. I remember the way she'd tilt her head when she found something funny, I'd said. Like she was making room for more. Emily had smiled, small and private. Thanks for remembering, she'd said. Like it was a favor I was doing her, storing what she couldn't keep on her own. The first clue came from the stupidest place, the trash. I was taking out a bag when a folded slip slid free and landed at my feet. A pawn ticket. I almost threw it away. Then the address hit me, a shop across town, near the strip of vape stores and payday lenders. The date was last week. The listed item, gold locket with photo. I knew that locket like I knew my own hands. My brother had given it to his wife the year Emily was born. Inside were 2 tiny photos, baby Emily and a man and woman too young to know what was coming. Emily used to take it out on her birthday and press it between her palms like a prayer stone. She hadn't worn it in years, said the chain was too thin, but she kept it in the little velvet box on her dresser, under the socks. I checked the drawer. The velvet box was there. The locket wasn't. There are explanations you accept because the alternative is too ugly. Maybe she'd needed cash for something dumb and embarrassing. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe she'd loaned it to a friend. I set the ticket on the counter and stared at it like it might blink. The second clue was digital. My lawyer asked for copies of Emily's texts with me. I scrolled back through and realized the gap. A week and a half ago, she switched to one-word replies, stopped sending photos, started dodging calls. The timing matched the pawn slip. Noah popped into my head. I didn't like him because he reminded me of boys I'd known, kind until they were bored, clever until they were cornered. He'd come over twice. The first time, he shook my hand with a grip that said he'd Googled how to impress a father figure. The second time, I found a cap from a little silver tank under the porch steps. Just whipped cream, he said when I held it up. For a prank. His smile didn't budge. My hands did. I let it go because I didn't have proof of anything but contempt. I went by the coffee shop where Emily worked. The manager, a girl barely older than Emily, straightened when she saw me. "You can't be here," she said. "We've been told." "Told what?" I asked. "That you're not allowed near her." Her eyes flicked to the phone under the counter, like it was a panic button. "I just want to know if she's okay." "She quit," she said. "Last week." She bit her lip. She seemed stressed. Then she stopped showing up. "What about Noah?" I said. "He still come in?" Something flickered in her face, recognition, then alarm at herself for letting it show. "I don't know who that is." I left before she could call anyone. On the drive home, I stopped at the pawn shop. The man behind the glass was all elbows and suspicion. "We can't discuss clients," he said, which meant I'd asked before I had my story straight. "It belonged to my late sister-in-law," I said. "My niece, she's sentimental." She didn't mean to. The guy stared at me the way you look at a loose dog, calculating the risk. "If you want it back, you pay what she got plus our fee," he said. "Otherwise, it goes out in 3 weeks." "How much?" He told me. It was more than Emily would have needed for any normal teenage emergency and not nearly enough for anything real. I paid it anyway, because I'd spent 10 years solving problems with money I didn't have. On the way out, I asked, casual as a bad liar, "She alone when she brought it in?" He shrugged. "Most kids don't do pawn alone." Gives M the shakes. "Boyfriend?" He smirked. "Or a man who wants to look like one." When I got home, the voicemail light was blinking. My sister, not by blood, but the kind you pick up over years of little kindnesses, had called. Jenna lived 2 doors down. She'd dropped off casseroles when Emily had the flu, had stood in my kitchen on the first day of school senior year to take our picture because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her message was short. "Matt, I'm sorry. Please don't come by. I have to think about my kids." I stared at the wall a long time, then went out back and sat on the steps. The yard was quiet except for the highway breathing on the far side of the trees. Once, when Emily was 9, we'd sat on those steps and watched a thunderstorm roll in. She'd tucked herself into my side and asked if lightning could strike the same place twice. "Yes," I'd said. "But we grounded the house. It knows how to let it pass through." I'd believed it. I'd believed a lot of things. The third clue came in the form of a teacher with careful hair and a reputation for boundary pushing in ways that made the school board write memos. Mr. Harlan taught ethics and advocacy, a class that let seniors feel like they were already in college. He ran an after-school group called Change Agents, which looked good in brochures. Emily liked him, not in the crush way, or if she did, she hid it. She liked how he listened. "He's the only one who talks to us like we're people," she'd said once, when I'd asked why her homework for his class took all night. I emailed him. Kept it bland. Mr. Harlan, this is Emily Carter's guardian. I'd like to speak briefly about her recent absences. Thanks, Matt Carter. He responded fast. Mr. Carter, I hope Emily's okay. Of course, happy to chat. I'm on campus until 5. I drove over. The school looked the same as always, kids in hoodies, posters sun-faded on the walls. Harlan's room had string lights and quotes scrawled on butcher paper, silence is complicity. Question authority. It would have made me smile, in another life. He was younger than I expected. Or he'd taken better care of himself. Tan, no ring, sleeves rolled to his elbows like he was about to get flour on his hands and call it a lesson. "I'm sorry about everything that's happening," he said, inviting me to sit. His face arranged itself into sympathy, the kind that keeps distance. "Emily is bright. One of the brightest. Has she talked to you?" I asked. He tilted his head. "About what?" "You know about what." He took a breath. "Students talk," he said carefully. "But I can't share conversations without breaching trust." "You're a mandated reporter," I said. "If a kid tells you someone's hurting them, you report." His eyes cooled a degree. "And I do. Did Emily tell you something about me?" He folded his hands. "Mr. Carter, I understand you're in a difficult place. But I'm not at liberty." "She pawned her mother's locket," I said. "Last week. Did you know that?" Something flickered again, not surprise, but curiosity he couldn't hide in time. "No," he said. "I didn't." "Did you know she quit her job?" He leaned back. "I didn't, but it doesn't surprise me. She's carrying a lot." "What is she carrying?" My voice had a tremor I hated. "If you care about her, help me understand." He looked at the wall behind me like there was a wiser version of himself standing there, shaking his head. "Sometimes," he said, "the best way to help is to step aside." I stood. "I've been stepping aside for 10 years, I said. To let her grow. To let her make mistakes that won't wreck her life. I'm not stepping aside if she's in danger." He smiled then, small and sad. "You can't save them from everything." I left before I said something that would make a headline. On the way to the parking lot, a girl I recognized from our living room, freckles, bright laugh, a presence at birthday cakes and Netflix nights, crossed my path. Lila. She saw me and flinched like I was a snake. "Lila," I said, stopping, palms open. "Is Emily?" "You shouldn't be here," she said, eyes wet. "You're not allowed. Just tell me she's okay." "She will be," she said. Then, quieter, "if you don't ruin it more." I let her go. That night, I pulled the footage from the doorbell camera. The week of the pawn slip, 2 nights stick out. On Tuesday, Noah's Jeep idled at the curb at 1:07 a.m. He didn't come to the door. He texted, I could see the glow on his face, then drove off. On Thursday, a figure in a hoodie paused by the porch, head down, shoulders hunched. He stood there long enough for the camera to flag "person detected" twice, then left. Too slender for Noah. Too still. I replayed it till the pixels went gummy. Something in the way he stepped off the curb, careful, like he was counting, tugged at me. I'd seen that gait. At midnight, I remembered where. Mr. Harlan, crossing the parking lot after our meeting, measured steps, heel-toe, shoulders loose like he'd been trained to keep his body language unthreatening. I didn't know what that meant. I only knew it didn't mean nothing. I wrote it all down for the lawyer. He read in silence, then said, "Don't contact the teacher again. Don't contact the boyfriend. The police can see your footage. Let them do the knocking." So I didn't knock. I cut the grass. I paid the water bill. I made 2 plates of food by habit and threw one away. I called my brother's old number and listened to the disconnect message just to hear anything certain. On Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. A boy's voice came through, thin and wired. "Is this Matt?" he asked. "Emily's uncle?" "Yes," I said, sitting up too fast. He swallowed, chose another road. "I heard about everything. It's not like they're saying." "Who is this?" "Doesn't matter," he said. "Just know Emily's trying to fix something. She thinks this will buy her time." "Buy time from who?" He hung up. I stared at my reflection in the black screen and saw a man who could be anything you wanted him to be if you squinted: a martyr, a monster, a fool. I went to church for the first time in years, sat in the back, and didn't listen. When people stood, I stood. When they sang, I mouthed the words. A verse floated past, *The truth will set you free. Nobody ever mentions how long you might sit in prison while the paperwork gets lost. On the way out, I ran into Jenna on the steps. She looked like she'd aged since her voicemail. "So had I, please," I said before she could turn away. "Just tell me if Emily's with Tasha." Jenna's mouth tightened. "I shouldn't be talking to you. Just yes or no." She rubbed her temple. "She was. She's not now. Where is she?" "I don't know," she said, which meant she'd been told not to say. She started to move past me, then stopped. "You're not making it better, Matt," she said softly. "Sometimes love isn't enough." I watched her go. The phrase wasn't wrong. It just didn't help. That afternoon, the detective called. "We have Emily's statement," he said. "We'll need you again tomorrow." "What does it say?" "I can't disclose details," he said. "But I can tell you there are inconsistencies." "That's good," I said, stupidly. "It depends who you are," he said, and hung up. After dinner, silent, I went into Emily's room for the first time since the accusation. I stood at the doorway like I was about to wake a sleeping child. Posters where she'd left them, a band I didn't understand, a painting she'd done of a house that had our porch lights but someone else's windows. On the desk, the little ceramic dish with hair ties and a folded scrap of paper tucked beneath it. Any other night, I'd have left it. That night, I pulled it free, hands careful, like I was defusing something. It was a receipt. A cash transfer at a check cashing place near the pawn shop. Amount $1 $200. Receiver, initials only, K.L. Date, the same day as the pawn. I didn't know a K.L. in her life. I knew a Kai from sophomore year, who transferred out. I knew a Liam, a kid who'd tagged along to a movie once and stolen our popcorn. I didn't know K.L. It felt like a door in a hallway I hadn't noticed until I tripped over it. I sent the photo to my lawyer. He wrote back 2 words, "Don't touch." I put the receipt back exactly how I'd found it. I stood there a long time, looking at the empty space where her locket had been, before turning off the light and closing the door gently, so gently, like quiet could undo what noise had done. That night, I dreamed I was back on the roadside the night of the crash, even though I hadn't been there. In the dream, I could hear my brother's voice, but I couldn't see him. Emily was in the back seat, the window spidered with cracks, hairline fractures spreading, soundless, impossible to stop. She kept saying it's okay, like she was the one comforting me. I woke up with my fists clenched and the taste of metal in my mouth. The house creaked. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog barked twice, then thought better of it. The phone glowed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number, "Tomorrow, bring what you have to the river walk, 9 p.m. The bench by the blue sculpture. Alone. If you care about her." I stared at it until the words shook. Then I did the thing I wasn't supposed to do. I didn't call the detective. I didn't call my lawyer. I didn't call anyone. Because sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, you do the stupid thing because it feels like the only thing left. The summons sat on the table like a loaded gun. White envelope, neat black print, and my name staring back at me in that bureaucratic font that never means good news. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake, a parking ticket from a trip I didn't take, some clerical error. But then I saw the words, "Criminal investigation, statement required." And under that, complainant, Emily Hart. I didn't read the rest right away. My eyes went fuzzy. The kitchen felt too quiet, like the air itself was listening. Emily's name on that paper was wrong, not just surprising, not just painful, wrong. This was the kid who used to sit on my shoulders at the county fair. The one who'd fallen asleep in the cab of my truck, clutching her stuffed fox, after her first camping trip. The one I promised my brother, in the hospital, tubes and all, I'd take care of. And now she was telling the police I couldn't read the accusation yet. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. By the time I made myself finish, the words were like ice water down my back. Not neglect. Not some misunderstanding about a curfew. No, she'd accused me of something that would put a man behind bars and ruin his name forever, true or not. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. Tried to run through the past few weeks. Had we argued? Sure. She'd been moody, distracted. Spent more time texting that boyfriend of hers, Kyle, than talking to me. But that was normal teenage stuff, wasn't it? I thought about the last real conversation we'd had, a week ago. She'd come home late from a party, smelling faintly of smoke. I'd asked if she'd been drinking. She'd shot back, "You're not my dad," and stormed upstairs. I let it slide. Figured she'd cool off. And now this. The appointment at the station was for the next morning. I barely slept. Kept turning over old memories, wondering where they'd gone sour. There was no clue, no warning. Just the gut-deep certainty that I was walking into something I didn't understand. The detective was polite, but not warm. Asked me to tell my side. His pen scratched across the pad, but I could see it in his eyes, the way he kept his expression locked down. He'd already made up his mind. When I asked for details, he said, "We can't disclose everything at this stage." Which is cop talk for "we think you're guilty." By the time I walked out, I knew 2 things. First, that Emily's story was specific enough to convince people. Second, that my friends and relatives, the ones who'd known me for years, had already been talking to her, and some had chosen sides. Not mine. I went home to silence. The phone stayed quiet except for one voicemail from my sister, my only blood left besides Emily. Her voice was tight, formal. "You need to stay away from her until this is resolved." I didn't call back. That night, I sat in the dark, looking at the glow from her empty bedroom window. 10 years of my life were in there, birthdays, school plays, scraped knees, the nights she cried herself to sleep after losing her parents. I'd been there for all of it. And yet she was out there right now, telling the world I was a danger. The part one couldn't shake was the look she'd given me at the station when they let her leave first, a quick glance over her shoulder. Not angry. Not afraid. Just guarded. Like she was hiding something. The first real lead came from a place I shouldn't have been, the school parking lot. I'd driven there at the end of the day, telling myself I just wanted to see if Emily looked okay. If she looked like she was in danger. I parked far enough back that the staff wouldn't notice me, and I waited. Kids started spilling out in waves. Loud, laughing, shoving backpacks into trunks. A couple of them saw me and did the thing where they look at their friends, whisper, then glance back. I ignored it. Emily came out last, walking beside Kyle. He had that cocky, loose-limbed gait boys get when they think they own the world. She kept her head down while he talked. He was doing most of the smiling. She didn't see me, or pretended not to. But when they reached his car, she handed him something small, folded. He slipped it into his jacket without even looking. That was enough to make my stomach knot. I stayed in the truck until they drove off. That night, I pulled out the box I kept in the hall closet, old report cards, art projects, receipts for things I'd bought her, even a few photos I'd printed just because. I wasn't looking for nostalgia. I was looking for a clue. Something I'd missed. I found a crumpled receipt in the side pocket of an old backpack of hers, dated 2 weeks ago. A cash transfer at one of those check cashing places near the pawn shop. $1,200. Paid out to someone with the initials K.L. I didn't know a K.L. in her circle. I didn't like that. The next morning, I stopped by the pawn shop. The man behind the glass didn't want to talk, but money loosens lips. He confirmed what I already suspected, Emily hadn't been alone when she brought something in. Tall guy. Looked older. Kept his hood up. Kyle fit that description. I drove home with the locket in my pocket and a knot between my ribs. It wasn't just about the accusation anymore. It was about what she'd gotten herself tangled up in, and why she'd burn me to keep it covered. I called my lawyer and told him about the initials, the pawn ticket, the cash transfer. He told me to stop. You dig around, you look like a man trying to intimidate a witness, he said. Let the police handle it. But the police already thought I was the problem. If I didn't pull at this thread, no one would. That night, I went through Emily's social media, the accounts I knew about, anyway. Most were locked down. But one friend, Lila, still had public posts. In the background of one, dated right before the pawn slip, I saw Kyle leaning against a wall. And next to him, a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s. Watchful eyes. Standing just a little too close to Emily. The caption read, "Late night planning session with the crew." Planning for what? Lila answered on the second knock, her face pale in the porch light. She was one of the kids who'd been in my kitchen 100 times, raiding the fridge, laughing too loud. Tonight she looked like she was calculating whether to slam the door. Matt, she glanced over her shoulder. You can't be here. I'm not here to cause trouble, I said. I just need to ask one question. Her jaw tightened. You're not supposed to talk to me. Or Emily. I know. I kept my voice level. But I saw the photo you posted. The guy with Kyle. Who is he? Lila's eyes flickered, recognition, then something else. Fear. You need to leave. Lila, I said, lowering my voice, I think Emily's in trouble. Real trouble. And I think that man's part of it. For a second, she looked like she might fold. Then she shook her head, fast. If you care about her, drop it. I stepped back, let her close the door. But I caught the way her hands trembled when she locked it. On the way home, I pulled into the Riverwalk lot and sat in the truck with the engine off. That text from the unknown number was still in my phone: tomorrow, bring what you have. Alone. If you care about her. Whoever sent it knew exactly how to bait me. I didn't sleep much. Kept turning over the possibilities: blackmail, threats, maybe something criminal Emily had witnessed. None of them explained why she'd go nuclear on me instead of telling me the truth. Unless she thought I'd stop her from fixing it herself. The next night, I went to the meeting spot early. The bench by the blue sculpture was empty except for a soda cup someone had left behind. The air smelled like river mud and the faint tang of gasoline from the dock. At 9:04, a figure appeared at the edge of the path. Hoodie, hands in pockets, moving with deliberate calm. Not Kyle. Taller. Older. Same man from Lila's photo. He sat down at the far end of the bench, eyes on the dark water. You got the locket? I didn't answer. Because if you don't, he said, things get messy for your girl. My jaw clenched. What do you want with Emily? He finally looked at me, and there was nothing in his expression, just the kind of flat stillness that comes from a man who doesn't care about the law. She owes me, he said. And now, so do you. What does she owe you? He smiled, small and cold. You should ask her. But you won't get the truth unless she thinks you're out of the way. Which, thanks to that little police report, you already are. My stomach went cold. Emily hadn't just been protecting him, she'd weaponized me as her cover story. I'll get you the locket, I said, because in that moment, there was no other play. He stood. 2 days, he said, and walked off into the dark without looking back. I sat there a long time after he was gone, the river whispering at my feet. 2 days to figure out what the hell my niece had gotten herself into, and whether I could pull her out without sinking myself for good. I didn't go through the front door. I waited until I knew Tasha would be at work and Emily would be home, probably thinking she had the place to herself. The apartment was in one of those tired complexes by the highway. Thin walls, carpet that still smelled faintly of the last tenant's cigarettes. I knocked once. When she opened the door and saw me, she froze. Not fear, calculation. The same look she'd get as a kid when she was deciding whether to tell me she'd broken something. You're not supposed to be here, she said. I know. She crossed her arms. If Tasha comes home. She's not. I checked. I stepped inside before she could shut the door. We need to talk. Her jaw set, but she didn't tell me to leave. Up close, she looked worn. Like she'd been running on bad sleep and worse food. There was a faint bruise on her wrist, half hidden under her hoodie cuff. What happened to your arm? I asked. She glanced down like she'd forgotten it was there. Nothing. Emily. I'm fine. She moved toward the kitchen. You shouldn't be here. The police. I met him, I said. She stopped. Didn't turn around. Who? The guy from the photo. The one with Kyle. Her shoulders tightened just enough for me to see. He wants the locket, I said. Says you owe him. Says the police thing makes it easier to keep me out of the way. Now she did turn. Her eyes were hard, but under it, I saw something flicker, shame, maybe. Or fear. You don't know what you're talking about, she said. Then tell me. Tell me what's going on, and I can help you. She shook her head. No. If you get involved, it gets worse. Just, stay away, okay? Please. I almost said not a chance. Instead I studied her face, the lines of exhaustion, the way her mouth pressed tight like she was holding back more than words. Did he hurt you? I asked. She didn't answer. Emily. It's not like that. She grabbed a glass from the counter, filled it at the tap just to have something to do with her hands. "Just go, Matt. It's better if you're not in this." The way she said it told me everything. She thought she was protecting me. She'd built this whole ugly lie about me to keep the real threat pointed somewhere else. But what she didn't seem to understand was that she wasn't just burning my name, she was burning us. I left without saying goodbye. Back in the truck, I sat with my hands on the wheel, staring at the building. I had 2 days before that man expected the locket. 2 days to figure out how to take him out of her life without dragging her into the fallout. If it could be done at all. The man had given me 2 days, but I figured I had 1. The second would be his, for whatever he had planned if I didn't deliver. First step was Kyle. I knew better than to knock on his front door. Kids like Kyle don't answer questions from men they've helped burn to the ground. So I waited for him outside the vape shop 2 blocks from the high school. He came out laughing with 2 friends, blowing a cloud of sugar-smelling vapor. The laugh died when he saw me leaning against the truck. "Matt." His smile was thin. "Pretty sure you're not supposed to be talking to me." "Pretty sure you're right," I said. "But here we are." His friends hung back, watching. Kyle tried to look casual, but his eyes kept darting toward the street, like he was checking for backup. "What's KL stand for?" I asked. He blinked. "What?" "Cash transfer. 1200. Receiver KL, ring any bells?" He smirked, a little too quickly. "Nope." I stepped closer. "Listen, I don't care what you've been mixed up in. But you and I both know Emily's covering for somebody. And if it's this guy, the one you were with in that photo, then she's already in deeper than she knows." His smirk twitched, but he didn't answer. "Tell him," I said, "that if he wants to play games, he can do it with me. Leave her out of it." Kyle took a slow drag on his vape, eyes narrowing. "You really don't get it, do you? She's not some little victim you gotta save. She chose this." "Chose what?" He shook his head, smiling like I was the punchline. "Ask her." Then he walked off with his friends. I stood there, watching him go, and it hit me, Kyle was too cocky for a kid whose girlfriend had just accused her guardian of a felony. Which meant he knew exactly how this would end. Back home, I pulled the pawn ticket from my desk and looked up the transaction number. It took some creative lying about insurance purposes, but I got the ID copy they'd made when Emily brought the locket in. The name on the second ID, the one for the man with her, wasn't K.L. at all. It was Kevin Laird. 36 years old. 2 prior arrests, one for assault, one for possession with intent to distribute. Both charges dropped. The kind of man who knew how to scare people into silence. I dug deeper. Laird's last known address was an apartment above a defunct laundromat on the edge of town. I drove by at dusk. The windows were dark, but a motorcycle sat out front, black, low, the kind that rattles your teeth just looking at it. I didn't go in. Not yet. Instead, I sat across the street, lights off, watching. At 8:43, the door opened and Laird stepped out with someone else. Smaller. Hood up. Even from across the street, I recognized Emily's walk. They didn't speak as they climbed onto the bike. She wrapped her arms around him, and they pulled away. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles went white. If she'd gone to him willingly, that meant one of 2 things: she was trapped and pretending to play along, or she really did think he was worth burning every bridge she had left. Either way, I was out of time. I didn't think. I started the truck and kept enough distance that the bike's tail light was just a faint red pin ahead of me. They wove through side streets, avoiding the main drag. Laird knew the back ways. 10 minutes out, they turned down an unlit service road that ran parallel to the old rail yard. I killed my headlights and crawled after them. The pavement ended at a rusted chain-link gate, hanging open like it had been that way for years. Laird drove straight through. I parked just out of sight and went in on foot. The air smelled like oil and wet metal. Somewhere in the dark, water dripped slow and steady. The bike was propped on its stand beside a corrugated warehouse. A slice of yellow light bled out from a side door. Voices carried, low, tense. I moved close enough to see through a gap in the warped siding. Inside, half the space was filled with crates and pallets. The other half was bare concrete, except for a folding table stacked with plastic-wrapped bricks. Not books. Not food. Emily stood off to the side, arms wrapped around herself, watching Laird and another man count cash. Her face wasn't scared. It wasn't relaxed, either. It was the tight, focused look she got when she was trying to remember every detail of a problem. I realized then she wasn't just a bystander. She was in it. Maybe not by choice at first, but now she was deep enough that she thought she had a stake. The other man glanced at her. She's solid? Laird didn't look up from the money. She knows what happens if she's not. I felt my jaw lock. My hands itched to put an end to it right there. But charging in would only get her hurt. I backed away, heart thudding, until I was far enough to breathe without it echoing. In the truck, I sat in the dark, trying to make sense of it. Emily had seen enough cop shows to know exactly what this was. Which meant she'd had a reason to step into it anyway. And the only reason I could think of was me, or someone she thought was worth protecting more than herself. If I turned this over to the police, she'd be right in the middle of it. If I did nothing, Laird kept his hooks in her. Either way, the damage between us was already done. The next evening, I drove straight to the laundromat apartment. No more watching from across the street. No more waiting for permission. The front door wasn't locked. The hall smelled like mildew and stale cigarettes. Laird was at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of bills. Emily was there too, leaning against the counter. She froze when she saw me. Matt. Laird didn't get up. You bring it? I tossed the locket onto the table. It landed with a flat clink. He picked it up, turned it over, then slipped it into his pocket. Good. We're done. No, I said. His eyes lifted, slow, cold. Excuse me? You let her walk away. Now. Tonight. He smiled like I'd just told a joke. You think you're in a position to make demands? I stepped closer, not enough to touch him, just enough to make him notice the space between us disappear. You want me gone? Fine. But if you don't let her go, I take what I saw in that warehouse to the police, and I don't stop until they kick that door in. Emily's voice cut in, sharp. Matt, stop. She pushed between us, facing me now. You don't understand. Then make me understand. She looked at Laird, then back at me. Her voice was low, but steady. He's not after me. He's after Kyle. Laird laughed once. Kids and their loyalty. Emily kept going, fast, like she needed to get it out before I stopped her. Kyle messed up. Owed him money. He couldn't pay, so I told him I'd cover it. And if I couldn't, I'd make sure the cops were too busy looking at you to come sniffing around here. The words hit like a gut punch. She'd used me as the firebreak. Not because she thought I was guilty. Because she needed me burned to save someone else. Laird shrugged. Smart kid. Knew where to put the fire. I wanted to break him in half right there. But Emily was watching, eyes wide, silently begging me not to make this worse. I stepped back. If you come near her again, I said to Laird, you'll wish the cops were your problem. He didn't answer. Just waved a hand toward the door, bored now. Get out. I didn't turn my back until Emily followed me out. In the parking lot, she wouldn't meet my eyes. You should hate me, she said. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I felt, only that whatever we'd had before, it was gone. The police called me 2 days later. The detective's voice was flat, almost annoyed. "Mr. Carter, the complainant has withdrawn her statement." Just like that. 10 years of trust shattered, my name dragged through the mud, and now it was all being swept away with a line in a case file. No apology. No, we got it wrong. Just withdrawn. Does that clear me? I asked. Officially, yes. He didn't say unofficially, but it hung there anyway. I called my lawyer. He told me to keep my head down, let the gossip die. You've been cleared. That's the important thing. I didn't tell him it wasn't the important thing. A week later, I saw Emily for the first time since the night at Laird's. We met at a park halfway between my place and Tasha's. Neutral ground. She was early, sitting on the swings like she used to when she was little, pushing herself just enough to keep moving. She stood when I walked up. "Hi." I nodded. "Hi." We stood there a long moment, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. "I'm sorry," she said finally. I didn't know how else to keep him off Kyle. If I went to the cops, he'd have, you know. She trailed off. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." "It always goes this far," I said. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded, like she'd been expecting that. "You're safe from him now," I said. "That's what matters." "Are we, okay?" she asked. I looked at her, my brother's daughter, the kid I'd promised to raise, the young woman who'd just burned my life to the ground in the name of protecting someone who wouldn't have done the same for her. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't hurt us both. So I said, "You take care of yourself," and turned to go. She didn't call after me. On the walk back to my truck, I thought about the first night she came to live with me, her small suitcase, the stuffed fox clutched in her arms, her eyes too big and too tired. I'd promised her then she'd be safe. I'd kept that promise. But safety isn't the same as trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't grow back the same way. Emily still carries her secret. And I carry mine, that I'll keep protecting her, even if she never lets me close again. Some debts never get paid off.